which says life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Discipline is your willingness to continue working and pushing on when nobody is there or
Wow.
you're not held accountable. And initially I started getting involved for the scholarship, but I promise you guys, when I started doing stuff, especially in the community, so we would do Habitat for Humanity, and that was a game changer for me, like helping build homes for less fortunate people. Besides feeding the hungry, we did stuff with domestic violence. We did breast cancer walks. We did promotions with the American Heart Association as well. And when you get out in the community and you start meeting people who are fighting those battles, it changes you as a person. And I worked in accounting and I did finance as my undergrad. And I'm a numbers guy. I believe in value for money as well. And I'll tell you one thing, why you have an opportunity to do your freshman and sophomore year at a third of the cost than doing the exact thing at a 4 year. So like think about the money you could save for one. My mantra basically is I got it from my past infant and primary school in St. Lucia, Canon Laurie Anglican Primary. And it goes success through self-discipline. And it's something I've embodied and I've really tried to live by and I've tried to implement in every facet of my life. So my whole approach was to give 110% in everything I did. So whether it be like I get an assignment, I don't understand, I set up office hours, I ask questions, I do some reading, I do the research, and I put the time in because you reap what you sow. No matter what anybody tells you in life, what you put in is what you get out, and that's just the reality of the situation.
Mhm.
The College of Central Florida took a chance on me. And for that, like I will forever be grateful to that. And I just wanted to share that story with students that, dude, if I could do it, like anybody could do that. Like I'm no different or no special than anybody else. And
Welcome to the IT Connect podcast, a movement to bridge the diversity gap in technology by connecting IT professionals with minority and underrepresented students in the pursuit of a technology degree. On each episode, we interview successful IT professionals and let them share their stories, their experiences, their knowledge and wisdom to help students and to guide them and to educate them and to cultivate the next generation of minority and underrepresented professionals in information technology. I am your host, Kazim Abbott, also known as the Warren Buffett of people. Yes, I invest in people, while Warren Buffett invests in businesses. I'm a speaker, educator, and also an IT professional myself. Today, we have quite the lineup for you, and I'm really excited about our guest speaker today, who is Yanik Etan. And Yanik's story is no different from the millions of people who emigrate to the United States each year in search for a better opportunity. After being laid off from work in 2012, Etan left his home country, St. Lucia, to pursue an education that would equip him with the skills needed for a career in business, finance, and information technology. Despite a few challenges, Etan attended the College of Central Florida, the University of Mississippi, and Delta State University, where he completed his associates in business administration, bachelor's in managerial finance, and MBA with an emphasis on computer information systems, respectively. Through his educational journey, he not only excelled academically, but embodied servant leadership, which allowed him to serve in many leadership roles on campus and in the community. He would earn notable recognitions in the state of Florida, Mississippi. Etan currently resides in Memphis, Tennessee, where he works as an IT business specialist at International People. At IP, Etan is responsible for handling requests, solving incidents, completing system functional enhancements, and working collaboratively and cross-functionally on different projects. Yanik Etan, welcome to the IT Connect podcast.
And you make me seem like I'm Muhammad Ali. Well,
So, man, we were just honored and blessed to have you. And guys, one disclaimer before I get into it. Yanik and I go way back, went to high school together, and you guys know I love to see people's growth. And Yanik's growth over the last few years, nothing short of amazing. I mean, it's amazing. And I also want to say, I might call him Jigger. If I do, it's just a nickname that I'm used to saying, but I will try my best not to.
no, that's all good.
So Yannick,
But
first of all, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. What's a mantra you live by, and or a quote, and just a story to go with it.
um, well, I have a personal mantra and a quote. So my mantra basically is I got it from my past infant and primary school in St. Lucia, Canon Laurie Anglican Primary. And it goes success through self-discipline. And it's something I've embodied and I've really tried to live by and I've tried to implement in every facet of my life. A personal quote would be, I guess, one from Charles Swindoll, which says, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. And it's so true. So just a couple of stories to go along with that. When I moved to the States in pursuit of my dream of education, I went for a few challenges here and there, which I'll get through later in the podcast. But it was through that discipline and through that perseverance of just never giving up and every hurdle that came along, just learning from it and growing from it, using it as teachable moments rather than looking at it as a setback. Um, Working with that kind of mindset really helped me overcome a lot of challenges and just better succeed. And it kind of ties into the 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it, because it could you encounter a challenge and you could easily blame everybody else for it and not do anything to try to overcome it yourself. And there you fall into the life is 90% what happens to you and 10% how you react to it. But I've kind of developed the approach of really, if I encounter something like, okay, I encountered this challenge now, what can I do to overcome it? Or how can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? And I realized by just trying to follow those kind of values and that approach to everything I do, I've really reaped the fruits of all the labor that I put in. And I think if you do that too, and if you try to apply that kind of mindset, that will take you a long way, to be honest.
And that's a powerful quote, Yannick, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And I want to just segue into I mentioned that you work for International Paper as a business specialist. Could you just tell us a bit more about that role and what is it you do?
So at IP, I'm an IT business specialist. Um, some some tasks include like requests, and I handle incidents and stuff like that. There's a lot of project work as well. A majority of the task is centered on working with our business partners. So in my role, I act as a liaison between our business partners and IT developers. So our business partners are basically my work colleagues who work directly with the end customer. And they usually have requirements for our systems that they would like that would help improve bottom line or just streamline processes and stuff like that. So in my role as a liaison, I get business requirements from them and I have to document them in what you call a functional specification and document it in such a way that the business could understand it as well as the developers. And when I get all those requirements from our business partners, I then work with the developers and say, okay, this is what the business is requiring. This is why they want this. And based on what they're saying they need, we would we would enhance the system by looking at this table, running this program, and pulling from those fields and that kind of stuff. So I'm not in the real coding aspect of it, that's for the developers to do, but I'm just that liaison. So any feedback the developers give me, they would tell me, okay, this is possible, or this is a better way to do this. I would run it by the business, by our business partners, and it's just that back and forth flow of communication. With regards to requests, those are like one of the simpler tasks. So specifically, I work on the transportation planning team of IT. So requests could be anything like, hey, we need this transportation lane set up between this customer and that IP plant, or something like, hey, can we change the weights on this truck or like this rail cart or something for shipping? So simple requests like that. Incidents you encounter, those are the more tedious ones where I really lean on the expertise of my senior team members, because those are like some functionality of the system is not working as it should. So it takes a lot of research, a lot of documenting and just reviewing, looking at ABAP code and stuff to see if everything is running like it should. So those are more tedious and not as straightforward. But the cool thing about it is whatever issue we encounter, we do a good job of documenting how we resolved it or the steps we took. So in the event, years down the line, somebody encounters that same issue, we have what you call a SharePoint where we have all our SharePoint documentation. Somebody could search for it and see it and work from there. And lastly, with projects, uh, there are a lot of projects, so you have to multitask in on many different projects. Some are technical upgrades of our entire system, or like others are like different setting up this facility, or like if we open a new plant somewhere, like having that set up in the system. And that's where you have to work cross-functionally with a lot of different moving parts, like a lot of different team members, and you have to keep keep updated with where you are in the flow, in the workflow of stuff, and know when your task is up and what you have to do, and know the dependencies and who is dependent on your task and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what I do at IP.
So Yannick, you mentioned incidents, requests, and also projects. And I think for young IT professionals, that's definitely some words that many of us find ourselves learning about more after leaving the education space or school to get into the professional space. So that being said, what are some of the skills or the competencies that help you to be successful in your role?
That's a great question. And I was listening to your book review. I was on your YouTube channel, Kazim, and
Good stuff.
great job with that. Great job with that. And I was
Thanks.
I was listening to one of the book review ones, and in your book on how to win friends and influence people, you had an interesting quote at the start that 15% of one's financial success is attributed to the technical skills, whereas
Yeah.
85% run a human engineering, or like I would say soft skills.
hmm
I would say definitely your soft skills are very important, your human engineering skills, because yeah, we go to school, we do an IT degree, we get all those technical certificates, all those coding stuff, and all those accolades. But I guess based on my experience in my role, that's what I could speak from my role. Um, being having those soft skills, being able to interact with people, other team members, like you could see in my role, I have to speak in a way that our business, I could have to break stuff down in layman terms for our business partners. But whereas when I speak to our developers, I could use a lot of jargon. So, so knowing how to communicate, um, listening is always important, listening skills, being a critical thinker as well, and being able to problem solve. You have in IT and technology in general, that's ever changing. So you have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to handle ambiguous situations all the time because IT is ever changing. Working in teams and collaborating as well. You you have to be able to embody those values. And in my role, I found that those are very, very, very important. So so I would say, yeah, a lot of weight on those soft skills, but yeah, you need the technical skills. you can learn as you go along with work, because I'll tell you, I did some SAP at the University of Mississippi. I did some SAP in my MBA program, and I promise you guys, the SAP I dealt with in school compared to what I saw at IP, it wasn't SAP. I could tell you that because at school you use like generic SAP, but when you get to a company and you get hired, there's so much customization to
Yeah.
SAP. It looks totally different from what you're
Mhm.
accustomed to. So I'll tell you, that stuff you could learn as you go along day to day. So, but definitely the soft skills are really important.
Yannick, I'm really happy you called that out. When I read that statistic, man, 85% of your financial success being based on, those soft skills. I mean, that just hit me. It really did. And I think, again, we're all technology people, so I know we love the coding. Many of us on this call, we love getting into the actual technology. But again, guys, you have to make that shift that, okay, if I want to advance, if I want to become a leader, I have to evolve beyond just the technical skills, right? And so I like how you call out the soft skills, extremely important. And just want to echo that that is something, folks, even if you have a career in technology, you need that. The other thing Yannick mentioned, I want to just hop on is when it comes to being a liaison, companies were created for a reason. They were made to make a profit, right? So you have to understand where the business is wanting to go. What is their strategy? What is their vision? And see how you could also evolve to meet those needs and help them achieve what they're trying to achieve and get where they're trying to go. One of the a follow-up question in this section, Yannick, is when it comes to you mentioned SAP. Could you just give us a little background on what SAP is for those who might not be familiar?
Well, SAP is the world's leading ERP software in the world. And SAP is all about it. Many companies operate in different systems, or sometimes without a ERP system, they operate in siloed, and you get a lot of data issues and stuff like that. And you don't want that stuff, because when you have data issues, it just creates a lot of problem and inconsistencies. So what SAP does, and ERP systems in general do, is really provide an environment that could integrate all departments, all systems, everything together, where you have one version of the truth, as you would say in IT. So you eliminate inconsistencies of data and stuff like that, because everything is interconnected and integrated in that sense. So yeah.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And also for our viewers and listeners, we do have some of our mentees on the call, other IT students, and we have a question from Greg. Greg, what is your question?
Hey, so this is great. I'm actually experiencing, I guess, a learning curve at work when dealing with the business team, essentially our stakeholders, and that's emerging. We're making technical debt or making less than optimal technical decisions for features that may not have a big ROI. And I'm having trouble explaining to the stakeholders, that feature sounds good, but for us to implement it, we have to do X, Y, and Z, which may have these technical complications later on, but their focus on the near term and the quick turnaround. How do you have that conversation?
So the early part of your question, you were breaking up. I'm not sure if it was on my end or if you could repeat the first part.
So I was wondering when dealing with business stakeholders, how to avoid decisions that lead to more technical debt for features that more or less have a low ROI, and how to explain and have that conversation and kind of that back and forth with the stakeholders.
Um, I guess based on my experience, you would first of all, I would run it by, let's say, a team lead or more experienced member. Well, at least in my case, is what I would do, since I'm new to IP. But in situations like that, my personal approach is really to show them how it adversely affects bottom line. Because anytime you could put together a report or presentation and say, hey, if you do this, while you are, because people tend to experience short-sightedness and focus on the short term, while you're looking at this 2 weeks or a month or 2 months down the road, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you could experience those losses which will far exceed whatever benefits you have. So I feel if you could if you could explain to them how it would impact bottom line and how it would adversely affect the company as a whole and just the goals of the company and just in general how it directly impacts them because it'll be their decision to do stuff like that. It's a good way for to give them something to think about so that they can't say they don't know. Um, but I would definitely run it by a team lead first, get their feedback and then take it from there really.
I think that's some great advice, Yannick. And I want to just say, I think it reminds me of how important communication is, right? And again, being able to tell a story, right? I think if you could paint a picture, tell a story that kind of ties back to the bottom line, as Yannick described, that helps people kind of go beyond the initial excitement of, wow, this is so flashy, versus, okay, this will hurt me because I have skin in the game at this point. This will hurt me and my credibility in the process if we attempt this and it fails. So I thought that was a great response. Good stuff,
Because
guys.
to add to that, right, I'll give you an example. So I was on this call recently about this a software implementation that this team wanted to do, for instance, and we were meeting with all these vendors. Those vendors are doing their demos and stuff. And to the business, to our business partners, the presentation is exciting to them. But to IT, we're able to see deeper into it and see, like you say, in the future impacts and causes. Like, while it may look good now, like down the road, is it scalable? Like when we start growing, like can the system handle that growth and can the system handle that increase in data? And so it's a lot of things that you kind of have to and really break it down in layman terms too. And I believe anytime you could show people how something adversely affects them, then you really get to hit the nail on the head in that regard.
Yeah, I love that. I love that response, Yannick. Yeah, that's good. I do organizational change management, and it's about the people side of these changes. Now, as you could imagine, again, when there's a new exciting thing, everybody wants to get into it, right? One thing we focus on is what's in it for me. So what Yannick described is a different a spin on that concept. You know, how does it affect you? How does it make you look? So I think that's a really good and a PowerPoint when having those discussions. Because again, you want to let them know I'm not attacking the idea. I'm not attacking you personally. I'm attacking the implications and what it could do to you. So I think that's awesome. So guys, we're gonna take a jump here to the next section, and I want to go back, Yannick, to tell us about. You know, you said you were from St. Lucia, simply the most beautiful island in the world. And tell us about what growing up was like and just your academic history back in St. Lucia.
Man. Growing up, I had a very exciting life in St. Lucia, I will say that. I lived there for 26 years of my life. Um, Academically, well, like I said, I went to Canonori Anglican Primary. From there, transitioned to St. Mary's College, which was our secondary school slash high school. Um, and then did community college at Sarfa Lewis Community College, did advanced levels or A levels, like you call it. And I'll be honest with you guys, it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life of academia, I promise you. But growing up in St. Lucia, and it's funny because the things I know now, I had no idea of it then. Um, my parents worked really hard and really, really hard. And sometimes I look back on it and they they made magic out of nothing, to be honest, to provide for us. Um, I come from a family of three boys. I'm the last. And academically, when I went to school, I was always the joker, the class clown. In that sense, I never really took school seriously, and I'll be honest with you. Never, always. didn't have any standards, always did just enough to get by. I just wanted to get by, I just wanted to graduate, and that was it. And that was just my approach to school in St. Lucia, really. And I had no idea that later down the road it would really come back to bite me in the butt, because I just never took it seriously. But those are all learning experiences.
So I think you mentioned that you were not a great student back then, Yanik, but you were back home, you did graduate, you did have a job. So what motivated you then to leave your good life, your beautiful life in St. Lucia, and decide, you know what, I'm going to America and I'm going to pursue more school?
Well, well, I know you call it paradise, but but paradise wasn't always paradise, because the older I get and the better understanding I had of life and where I was in life at that point, it wasn't in a really good place, because I got out of community college in 2006. I landed an internship. So graduated, started internship for like 3 months, and then I got a full-time position with this telecommunications company. Back then it was known as Cable and Wireless. Now I think it's known as Flow. And I worked in accounting as an accounts clerk and then a sales reports analyst. So I worked there for 6.5 years. And in my last year and a half, and funny enough, the last year and a half, the company was implementing, the company had an SAP project. So we were going SAP, we were going ERP to integrate all our systems, all our departments and stuff. And ultimately, SAP was requiring us to restructure as a company. So stuff that I used to do, for example, like I used to reconcile our bank statements, I would do our inventory stuff, I would do things like that. SAP was doing that in a split second. So there was no need for me. And I was so young and didn't realize what was coming my way. And gradually, as implementation went on and the restructuring was taking place, in different phases, people were being laid off. And it still never dawned on me that, hmm. But anyway, my time came like anything else, and it was a turning point for me, because 6 months prior to being laid off was when it started to hit me, because my parents, my dad in particular, he would always encourage me, when are you going to start school? When are you going to get your bachelor's? When are you going to do more education? And I never took it seriously, just never gave it a thought. And then I realized now that I should have done that. And then I started seeing all my friends coming back home and they had finished school and they had gotten done. And I started reflecting on where I was personally. And I wasn't in a good place. I was still broke. I was still living like a kid. And I mean, I was 26 then. So, and I was still a joker, to be honest. And I had friends in the company who used to call me a slacker and a joker. And yeah, they didn't mean any harm, but in every joke, there is a little truth. Don't matter what anybody tells you. And looking back on all those things, I started to realize I have to do something. So when my time came and I was laid off, I I decided to make the decision to move to the States. Fortunately for me, I was a permanent resident and my parents were already living in Florida. So it was then I really made the decision that I really have to get school done, and this is what I really wanted. It wasn't anybody forcing me to do it. And I made the decision and I made the move to the States to try to get school done.
So, Yannick, you said you lost your job, and I want to call out something here, guys. Yannick mentioned there was an SAP ERP implementation, and I think ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning or something like that. So, guys, I apologize for the acronyms, but again, it's one of those things where you start hearing it, you just start using it. So, SAP was happening. There was a restructuring. He lost his job. Guys, these things happen a lot in companies that are dependent on technology, because as technology evolves, certain rules get redundant. And I mean, it's hard. It's not difficult. I mentioned earlier, I had organizational change management. And imagine when you're doing a change like that, and there is an impact where people are losing their jobs. I mean, it's difficult, it's tough. And it's one of the reasons, guys, why I'm really pushing this podcast. I want you guys to develop technology skills, because when you have those skills, you pretty much have a job security. You have those skills where that your work, what you do, cannot be easily replaced. It's like what Beyonce says in her song, you're not irreplaceable, right? So that I couldn't resist it. I just could not. That is the point of really pushing for technical skills. If you have those skills, I mean, worst case scenario, a company lets you go. If you have those strong technology skills, you could create your own thing, do your own business, your own company, or actually work with other people on your own terms. That's what's possible when you have those powerful skills. But yeah, so Yanik, moving back to you, sir. So you lost your job, you decided, okay, I'm gonna make that pivot and go to America, and kind of just see what's gonna happen there. So just walk us through what it was like when you initially got to America. I believe you're in Florida. Walk us through your initial, just landing there, and how you decided to actually go back to school after all these years.
And I hated it. I'll be honest with you. It was really a culture shock, because I feel like in the islands you have a lot of leeway, and you have I guess in my mind I was stuck in my ways, so it was about changing and adapting to my environment. And the US was completely different. I mean, from how we drive. We drive on the opposite side of the road, for one. Um, the groceries, how we take the bus, everything was different. So it was like resetting how I think and resetting my mindset to 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 get to just better be able to handle the difference in culture and everything that was happening around me. Um, it was very challenging, because I will tell you guys, um, failing failing to failing to prepare or failing to plan is like planning to fail. So
Amen.
for me, I came to the US to get educated, but I didn't have a plan.
Mm,
I I didn't know what to do. So my parents were pushing me, hey, come to school, come to school. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna come, I'm going to school, but how do I get to school? Never thought of that. And and it's because, again, I just wasn't mature enough growing up to know that, to do some research, a little research, like to know like simple things like, yeah, you need to do the SAT. Didn't know that. So little things like that, I had to, in research, I find like I could have done all that stuff months before I got there and get a head start. But
Hi guys, Kazim Abbott here. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I have a huge ask. Would it be impossible for you to just subscribe to the channel or to the podcast on whatever platform you consume it? That would really be helpful to us. If you want to go the extra mile, no pressure. But if you could like this video, leave us a short review on whatever platform you're consuming this content on, that would be a tremendous blessing and would help others find this content. Hopefully, this can be life-changing for you, and this is a way you could easily pay it forward and allow this content to be life-changing for somebody else as well. Thank you so much for your time. I don't take it for granted. Have a wonderful rest of your day and have a blessed week. I appreciate you.
but anyway, moved to the States October 2012, and trying to figure everything out, applying for schools. My mindset originally was, I need to go to a 4-year institution to get my bachelor's, because I'd already done community college. I wasn't going back to community college. So I'm applying to all these schools, paying those school fees, paying to have transcripts, high school and community college transcripts sent to those schools from St. Lucia, which was very costly, by the way. Um, some of them I did via FedEx, because I'm trying to start in the spring. So, and to get rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter. And it's like, whoa, never really thought about it. And then I realized, you know what? Let me look at my GPA from community college. And that thing was dismal. That thing was, and I'll be honest with you, for transparency purposes, a 1.6 out of 4. Yeah. So I had nobody to blame but myself, you know? So I'm applying to these schools, not getting accepted. A handful of schools accepted me, like two schools, I think, Barry University, and I don't remember the other one. But those were private institutions, and there's no way I could have afforded that. So my parents kept trying to get me to go to the local community college in Florida, because we were staying in Ocala, Florida, which is central Florida. And and I was like, no, I kept pushing back because I kept wanting to leave the nest because for the last 4 years I'm living alone independently, and here am I, 26 years old, back under my parents' roof, under my parents' rules and stuff like that. So I wanted to get out, and it was failure after failure. And my money was really running low. And I'll be honest with you guys. And it was starting to look really bleak for me. Like I was in a I was in a bad place. And then to please my parents, I was like, you know what? I'll honor you guys and I'll apply for the community college. And I was like, you know what? When they reject me, I'm just gonna take my stuff and I'm gonna head back home because I prefer to struggle in my home country, in my environment where I'm comfortable than to struggle here where I have no friends, I don't know anybody but my parents. So it was frustrating in that sense. And and I promise you guys, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I got the acceptance letter, and I still get chills thinking about it because that was a defining moment for me because it they took a chance on me. And even though my SAT scores wasn't good when I took it, they had different programs in place at the school. So I didn't do too good on the comprehension part, the reading comprehension. So they had programs in place where you could do this little test just on the comprehension, and depending on what score you get admitted. So did that, got the score I needed, and that was a game changer for me. And that had me driven. I was so driven. I was so motivated because at that point in my life, I really wanted to do school. It was what I wanted, and I was willing to put in the work. But my past transgressions at school was holding me back. And what I did back then wasn't a reflection of who I am at that point in time. So I had that chip on my shoulder to really prove that I was more than what that GPA showed I was. And from there, it was just putting in the work, and it comes back to the saying again, it's 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. So
Yannick, I
so
just want to interject here, man. I mean, guys, he covered so many powerful nuggets. I just want to take a pause to make sure we get it right, and for our listeners also, because he mentioned being 26 years old on his parents' couch, no friends because he's in a new place on his own term, on their terms really, and then that one application, he didn't even want to go to the community college to begin with, but then he get that one acceptance, and that said they took a chance on me, and that mindset shift just kind of changed the dynamic. And folks, that is just so powerful, man. And I want people to just remember that no matter what you've been through, your past does not define you. There is always an opportunity for you to make change. However, you have to put in the work. He had to put in the application, right? And he got a bunch of rejections. So he had to keep applying in spite of the rejections. And once that opportunity came, he was so hungry. It's like, you know what? Now is the time. Now it's time to grind. Now it's time to put in the work. And Yannick, the funny thing is, guys, Yannick said earlier, he was a joker, right, at his company and back in college. And yeah, I remember Yannick being a joker, a nice guy, one of the nicest guys you would ever meet. He was a joker. If you want to have a good laugh, talk with Yannick. You have a really great laugh, actually. But I did not know all these things were happening. I did not know. I mean, we weren't really talking much back then. However, as he made that mindset shift, I started seeing the evidence of a change. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. So, Yannick, a question for you, man. Why do you think people in America especially tend to be, anti-community college? And like, I want to go to a 4-year school, which you mentioned you wanted to do as well. Why do you think that's the case? And what's your, I guess, two questions. Why do you think that's the case? And what's your advice to people who feel that way?
my honest belief is that I think it stems from a systemic standpoint that the impression that community college is a lower tier of people go to community college, but the upper echelon of people go to those SEC schools, go to those Ivy Leagues and stuff like that. But but really and truly, I promise you, that's far from the case because my attendance at community college and I'm glad I had that experience of community college and then a four-year institution at a well-recognized SEC school at that. So I will tell you, some of the most brilliant people I've met was at the community college level. The work ethic and everything was just is unmatched. You wouldn't find that anywhere else. And I feel like at the community college, you have a lot of people who were like myself, had some kind of challenge that they had been through. So they kind of had to take that path. So they were also driven for success as well. So I think that's why, but it's, I don't agree with it personally. I'm a strong advocate for community college. And and I worked in accounting and I did finance as my undergrad. And I'm a numbers guy. I believe in value for money as well. And I'll tell you one thing, why you have an opportunity to do your freshman and sophomore year at a third of the cost than doing the exact thing at a four-year. So, like, think about the money you could save for one. You also have an opportunity. Another thing that I like community college for is that life could happen at any point. So let's say in your third year of undergrad, let's say in your junior year, life happens, you have to leave school and let's say go work or go handle a family matter. But at least under your belt, you have an associate's there. But if you go directly into a four-year, you don't have anything. So let's say you have to go into the workforce. They hire you on a high school transcript, whereas they could hire you on an associate's level. So you could see the difference in pay and the benefit
Yes.
of doing community college one time. So little things like that, it I'm just a strong advocate for it because you have so many opportunities. The other great thing about community college too is that you have a personalized setting. So you have smaller classrooms. You could build that relationship with your professors and stuff like that. But whereas when you do those like English Comp 101 classes at a university, you best believe you're in an auditorium with 250 students. So it's really hard. It's not impossible, but it's really hard to get that personal touch and that attention that you need. And especially for me, maybe sometimes we think our setbacks are the end of the world, but maybe God had a bigger plan for me, and that was the best route for me because I had not been in school for 6.5 years and probably 7 years at that time because I started in the summer of 2013. So maybe had I make that jump directly into a four-year, me in an auditorium style classroom, I would have get consumed and eaten up alive because I wouldn't know. But community college gave me that advantage of building that relationship and not being afraid to ask questions. And while I was in the class as well, I realized there were minorities, there were non-traditional students at that as well, which was really helpful for me because in St. Lucia, when I went to school, in the classroom, you only see people your age. But when I got to community college, I saw people my parents' age, older than my parents, younger than me, my age. So that made me feel a little comfortable in that regard. So I mean, man, just a strong advocate for community college.
Absolutely, Yannick, and I'm with you on that. I know Aaron was nodding his head and smiling because Aaron actually went to the community college system up here as well. So, Yannick, something you said I really like, man. You mentioned that it was just God's plan because God knew if you had possibly gone to college right away, things might have not worked out as well. And I shared this I think on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram a couple of days ago. Sometimes what we say is a setback is just a setup for the comeback. I say that again, sometimes a setback is just a setup for the comeback. And I feel like that's what, that's kind of what happened for you, Yanik. And I want to move back to the timeline of Yanik's timeline. So Yanik, you got into community college, right? And there's a phrase I like to say: motivation gets you started, but habit is what gets you there. So you had the motivation, you got into, hey, I'm in college now, I've made mistakes, I've made transgressions, I'm about to change things up. How did you go from that initial motivation to sustaining it and keeping the progress going?
Mantra: success through self-discipline. So, discipline is your willingness to continue working and pushing on when nobody is there, or you're not
Wow.
held accountable.
Give us that again, man. Give us that again. That was good.
Discipline is your willingness to continue working and pushing on when there's no accountability at stake and nobody is there. So it was just, I came with a plan, I came on a mission, and I was driven to the point where nothing, and I promise you, nothing was going to really derail me from that mission.
Wow.
Because I've been on the short end of the stick. I've seen what it's like to not have an education. I've seen what it's like to be a joker. I've seen what it's like to not take school seriously. I've seen what comes from that. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I didn't have standards for myself. I just did barely enough to get by. Let me try something differently now. For the next few years, let's commit 110% to this and set a standard for myself where everything I touch, I wanted to turn to gold, kind of.
Wow.
So my whole approach was to give 110% in everything I did. So whether it be like, I get an assignment, I don't understand, I set up office hours, I ask questions, I do some reading, I do the research, and I put the time in, because you reap what you sow. No matter what anybody tells you in life, what you put in is what you get out, and that's just the reality of the situation, no matter what. And if you put 110% in, you will get 110% out of what you put in, and that's just a fact. And that's how I approach school, and that's how I approach everything I do now. Because I mean, when you see the results, the self-fulfillment that comes from it as well, it makes you see, man, yeah, like this is what comes from hard work. Like if you continue doing that, this is what you will get. So it was just my whole mindset of sustaining.
I like that, Yanik. And, for our listeners also and viewers, yeah, when you start seeing those small wins, those early successes, that it's addictive. And I think it's important to really just help you to sustain and to keep pressing. So guys, I'll share a quick story because we mentioned Yanik, he said it himself, being a joker. So a couple of years ago, back in, I think, 2016, I'm on LinkedIn, LinkedIn, and I'm starting to see Yanik representing an organization called PTK, Phi Theta Kappa. As a matter of fact, I was in Springfield, Illinois, well, I'm still here right now, and I'm talking to one of my mentees at the community college, and I mentioned, that I had a buddy who was in PTK, and my mentee goes, "Is his name Yanik?" And I'm like, "Hold up, how do you know Yanik, man?" And again, so his evolution after getting into community college, he connected with PTK to the point where he's becoming well known across regions, not just, nationally for his involvement with PTK. So Yanik, tell us about PTK and just kind of how you got involved and what that story was like.
So Phi Theta Kappa. So I started school, started community college the summer of 2013, enrolled in 4 classes, and driven. I was working and I was doing school, I had a full course load. At the end, I got straight A's. So the hard work started to show. I'd never seen an A in my life, I promise you. I'd never seen an A in my life at school in St. Lucia. But here I was, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is probably a fluke, but anyway, it is what it is. So a couple weeks into the fall semester, I get the invitation letter, and I had no idea what Phi Theta Kappa was. But they had it said, based on your scholarly academic accomplishment and stuff like that, we're extending this invitation to you to accept membership. So I didn't know what it was, but it had the advisor's information at the bottom. So decided to contact him, get some more information, and it's one thing I would encourage you guys to do too. When you have questions, ask questions and seek help, no matter what. Seek
Yep.
clarification. There's
Yep.
nothing like a dumb question, and utilize the resources that are available to you wherever you are. So did that, went to the advisor, and he started telling me about Phi Theta Kappa, the Honor Society, and all of that. And he said scholarships, and that's all I needed to hear. So it was like say no more. So okay. So I accepted membership, and my advisor, he continued talking about these leadership roles you could get involved in and stuff like that. And I thought to myself at that point, well, I'm not doing that. I never considered myself to be a leader any stretch of the way. And and he was like, yeah, you could do all those things, and there's this convention, and you could get involved in the community and do stuff on campus and that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, I was thinking to myself, well, I'm working and taking school seriously. I don't have time for that stuff. So paid the membership fee, got involved, got accepted, all that stuff, and jumped right into doing the scholarship application. And then I realized the scholarship applications asking you, so list 5 things that you've been involved in on campus or in your community and that kind of stuff. So it was like, I have nothing. So it was like man, like I can't catch a break. So from there, I really started getting involved in Phi Theta Kappa on campus first and stuff. And and initially I started getting involved for the scholarship, but I promise you guys, when I started doing stuff, especially in the community, so we would do Habitat for Humanity, and that was a game changer for me, like helping build homes for less fortunate people. We started feeding the hunger. We started feeding the hungry. We did stuff with domestic violence. We did breast cancer walks. We did promotions with the American Heart Association as well. And when you get out in the community and you start meeting people who are fighting those battles, it changes you as a person. And that changed me.
Wow.
And and that was another motivator that, like, man, I have to give back in some way. Like, I have to play my part because I saw the gratitude on the organizers' faces and stuff like that. So that was where it springboarded for me, and I really got involved. And I'll tell you guys one thing too. A leadership role is not tied to a leadership position.
Oof.
So no matter where you at in an organization or anywhere you at, like don't be afraid to take on a leadership role, whether it has a title or it has a reward to it or not. Step into those shoes and take the bull by the horns, really, and just go with it. And that will take you a long way. And that was my approach too. And like I said earlier, I never saw myself as a leader, but that was because of who I was back then in St. Lucia. And that was because I kept asking myself, how could I be a leader in an honor society when I couldn't even get accepted into a 4-year? And I started having all those self-doubts, but you know what? My advisor and other members of the chapter saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So they motivated me, they pushed me. They're like, okay, we really want you to run for chapter president. So I was like, I don't see myself doing that. I don't have time. I started making excuses pretty much. And then it dawned on me that, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? I mean, this is an opportunity for you. It's an opportunity. Take it. And I'm a strong advocate for seizing opportunities as well when they come, because you just never know when or if they'll ever come again. So ran for chapter president. I got elected to my surprise. Served in that capacity. Then ran for regional president, and not regional president, regional officer. It was regional service officer in Florida, and I was on the regional officer team in Florida. So that was another exposure that I had. So now I'm not only operating on a campus level, I'm operate not only on a campus and my community level, but throughout the state and in other community
Wow.
colleges in Florida. So so that involvement really springboarded me. And then the opportunity for international president came along. And I was like, there's no way. There's really no way. And my advisor, he again came on me. He's like, but what's the worst that could happen? Like, you could do this. Like, I've seen your work ethic. I mean, you're very personable. I've seen you as a leader. And I'm still like, I cannot. I just can't. And then I'm like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen again? So jumped on that, campaigned, and I mean, gave a speech in front of 4,000 students, believe it or not, 4,000 plus
Wow.
students,
Wow.
and a little campaign speech, and ultimately got voted to serve in as the international president of BTK.
Wow.
And and that's an organization that inducts roughly 136,000 students annually, and
Wow.
has inducted more than 3.5 million members since its founding in 1918. So here am I at the pinnacle of leadership
Mm.
in this organization, over 100 years old. Well, at the time, nearly 100 years old. And just 2 or 3 years prior, I almost went back home.
Man.
And it was just, Hollywood couldn't write this story. I don't know how
Preach.
this
Preach.
happened. And I'm telling you guys, and it was through just sharing my story and just the authenticity of wanting to help. Because at that point, I got to a point in community college where I was such a strong advocate because the College of Central Florida took a chance on me. And for that, like, I will forever be grateful to that. And I just wanted to share that story with students that, dude, if I could do it, like, anybody could do that. Like, I'm no different or no special than anybody else. And that was my whole mindset. Through that, ended up serving on Phi Theta Kappa's board of directors as a student rep in that year too as well. And it was just a surreal experience having the opportunity to travel all across the country, like speaking, hosting workshops, um, presiding over different conferences, and doing that stuff. Me and like I couldn't believe that, and that's why I tell you, just take advantage of opportunities, because I could have said, I could have seen that letter when I got membership letter, and I could have said, no, $90, that's too much. I'm not investing in that. But did I get my $90? Did I get my return on investment? I'll tell you, I definitely, and I'm saying that now, but while I was in it, it wasn't even about the money, but all that stuff was just secondary, and it just came in without even looking for it. But yeah, that was really some of my experiences with PTK, and the number of doors that it just opened for me, and the opportunities that were afforded to me to serve in that capacity.
So, Yanik, I thought I had an idea of what you did, but I now realize I did not even capture the full magnitude of how far you went. So international, wow, man, that's beyond amazing. And I just want to anchor something, because Aaron and I were on a call this morning with a client, and we were telling him, hey, listen, we want you to do some of those things that you did, get involved in the community, take on some leadership roles. So I like what you said. Initially, it was about the scholarships, right? And just to keep it, 100, like they say, I literally told this young man, yeah, if you do that, that'll make you better for scholarships and whatnot. However, what I didn't tell him, which is what I know, which is what you said, is as he does those things and starts giving back and helping the community, it changes you. And it really makes you want to do it, out of the goodness of your heart, and not just for what benefits that may come to you. So, man, I really appreciate you sharing that. And you mentioned the leadership piece. so guys, so important. And again, I know we're trying to build IT professionals, but I think I'm more interested in actually building leaders, because everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is influence. Everything is leadership, guys. And I'll share a quick story I heard from a speaker. So this guy, a prolific speaker, he's been a world champion of public speaking. And he said, many people want to get paid to speak, but I actually get paid more to lead than to speak. So tell you guys, if you have those technology gifts and skills and you're a leader, and I like what Yanik said, it doesn't have to be about title or position. Just show up as a leader. Show up as a leader when you see that opportunity. And the other thing I want to just re-anchor back to what Yanik said was, when opportunities come, make the best of it. You never know if it will come back around. So when that little scholarship opportunity comes in the mail, or that chance to join an organization like a PTK, jump on it, because you never know. You might say, well, I'll get it next year. That might not come back to you. Might go to somebody else. Yanik, man, this is some really good wisdom you're sharing, man. I really appreciate it. So Yanik, we're in community college. You're in PTK, you've done your thing, you're well known. Talk about the transition from that to get into a four-year institution.
So believe it or not, even after my involvement and all the recognition in Florida and all of that stuff, all of my accomplishments, it was funny that I never really had a plan of a 4-year. Well, in fact, I did have a plan. So my community college was offering a 4-year MIS degree. And my whole mindset was, yeah, I'm gonna just stay here and just get this done. But then with my involvement and my advisor and others were like, you could do so much more on a wider scale. I mean, Ocala was blessed enough to have you. Florida was blessed enough to have you. Now is really time to get out there and really touch other places. And I took that and I really sat on it and thought about it, but I still wanted to be home. Still, again, that comfort level. I still wanted to be in my comfort zone. And then, but to my surprise, despite all those achievements and accomplishments, no university in Florida reached out at all. At all.
Wow, you kidding, right?
I'm dead serious.
Wow.
No university reached out at all. And I thought about that, and that was I was kind of disappointed in that regard. But then, again, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. But little did I know, the University of Mississippi was following everything I was doing over that year in international office. And they were following me, and I had no idea. And and that's real talk. They flew me and my team in and give us a campus tour and stuff like that. So I got to see the campus, and they were throwing all those scholarships at me. And when I went back home, that was like January 2016, I did that college visit. So graduated May 2016 community college. But all those bells and whistles, I still wanted to be in Florida. I still held out hope, but never materialized. So you know what? So the time came, and it was really time to make a decision, and the deadlines were coming up, and the scholarship deadlines were coming up, and I weighed out the options, and it was like, I could go out of state to Mississippi and pay out of state fees and stuff and all that stuff, and it would be way cheaper than attending in state at, let's say, a UF or
Wow.
UCF, Florida, University of Central Florida, or so I thought about it, and again, the finance guy in me again, like, I'm weighing out value for money. So I was like, well, hell yeah, I'm gonna go to Mississippi. Granted, I know nobody in Mississippi. I have no family, and I mean, it's Mississippi. And I remember my parents were worried, and my friends in Florida were worried, but but the one thing, they were worried, but they were supportive as well. And
That's
in
good.
life, the you are as strong as your support system. And they were encouraging and they believed in me. And when I went to the University of Mississippi, I I went there, and I'll be honest with you, I knew three people. Two other people who I met through PTK who ended up transferring there as well because of the scholarships, and one other person who was already there. So I'm moving now from a campus with about 3,000 to 4,000 students to now a university of 24,000 students. On the campus, I was 20,000 students as a whole. I'm moving from where I was well known, well accomplished, well recognized,
Big
to
fish.
somewhere where you just a speck. You just really nobody knows you, and you haven't done anything yet. So how could you get recognized for something you haven't done? So again, it was just about refocusing, readjusting. But again, the mission was always bigger than any challenge that presented itself, and that was to get educated and to get my bachelor's. And I remember at the University of Mississippi, it was tough academically. It was tough in the environment. And when I say tough, like just acclimating to a new campus. The campus is huge compared to community college, and adjusting to new professors, adjusting to new admissions counselors, and your department, um how you call them, your advisors, new advisors and stuff like that. It was about building those relationships again. And but I was up for the challenge. I was committed, I was driven, and I felt like I still had a chip on my shoulder. And again, that chip on my shoulder, because I was like, man, no school in Florida still never reached out. So I'm gonna prove that the University of Mississippi took a chance on me and they won't regret it. So it was all about pushing. And I'd never been in an auditorium style classroom. And remember earlier I said it's highly unlikely that you could build that relationship, but
Right.
that little percentage you can, because I did.
Wow.
Every day, came to class, sat in the front, asked questions. I didn't understand something, I asked questions. If it couldn't be answered, I set up office hours. And again, what you put in is what you get out. The uni- when I came to the school, right, I remember I did my orientation and they gave us this book to read called The A Game. And and one thing that profoundly impacted me from that book was something called the cheap seats. So in the book, the
Mm.
the author tells you if you go to a concert and the prices for all the seats are the same, where would you sit? Obviously in the front. So he's like, here's everybody coming to school. We pay the same tuition. You even pay more for tuition because you out of state or you international.
Mm.
So why are you gonna sit in the back? Why are you gonna sit in the
Oof.
cheap seats? So I was like, yeah, I have the scholarship dollars paying for that, but I'm gonna make those scholarship dollars count. So I'm sitting in the front. And that was my mindset again. So those little changes of your mindset could take you a long way. And I mean, and I was telling Kazim 2 days ago that at community college, I could have gotten by reading PowerPoints and attending classes and stuff like that, and just get by that way and do really good. I, at the University of Mississippi, it was the first time in my life I had to read entire textbooks, and I kid you not. I kid you not. Attend class lectures, did the assignments, and read the textbook. Every day I was reading. I remember my roommate thought I was crazy, but I did what I had to do. But yeah, that's my
Wow.
story for the University of Mississippi.
That's good. And I feel like you gave some really good advice, Yannick, that any person listening who's a college student, community college student, or knows a student really need to take into consideration. Number one, run the numbers. Be a finance person, right? Look at what that school is costing. And Yanik said it. He had to realize that going to Mississippi was actually costing him less money because of the offers given to him than staying in his home state. Yes, I know it'd be nice to stay home, get that home cooking and what have you, the comfort zone. But if you find a better opportunity elsewhere and the numbers make sense, I mean, go for it. The other thing is, I love the concept of the cheap seats. And again, if you're paying this money for school or somebody's paying it, why not maximize, where you sit so you could get that information? And just to add to that, you mentioned asking questions. That is so important. I mean, those professors get paid to educate you. Definitely ask questions, raise your hand, and man, you have to be persistent. You have to be willing, hey, I want this. And as an instructor, because I taught at the university for a few years, when I had students who demanded that, they got it from me. Of course, that wasn't the majority, but students who were saying, hey, I don't get this. Can we get office hours? I mean, I made time for them because they wanted it bad enough. So that's the mindset, man. That's the mindset you need to have if you're going to thrive. And like he said, at big schools, most people, you can't make those connections, but he made it. So that means it can be done. It is possible. So before I move to the next section, guys, and we're going to wrap up in a little bit here. Any questions from the guys around the call just about the university life or anything else we've discussed thus far? We good? All right. Sounds good. So Yanik, you did your thing out of Mississippi. You finished your graduate degree, your undergraduate degree, sorry. Walk us through the decision between, okay, do I now, because I'm sure that's a decision many American students and even international students go through all the time. You finish now, you have a degree. Do I now just keep going to school and get a graduate degree? Or should I instead go test the workforce? How do you make your decision?
For me personally, I had been in the workforce already. I had work experience, and I was also pretty involved on campus as well. And been pretty involved in school from community college and at the University of Mississippi. So I did an internship as well while I was at community college with our marketing department. So with that experience coupled with my experience from St. Lucia, being involved in Phi Theta Kappa, getting that experience at the University of Mississippi, I was involved in a host of different things. The three main ones were I was a student ambassador for the admissions office, so I gave campus tours to prospective students and recruiting. I was a community assistant with student housing. We call it community assistant, but it's really an RA. And I was part of a program called pre-college programs, which in the summer puts together a host of different workshops and programs for students K through 12 and incoming freshmen to just teach them different things in STEM and stuff like that. And for me personally, having that experience, I felt like I could have gone into the workforce, but my goal again was I was just driven for higher education. And again, coming to the US, my goal was to get a bachelor's, but gradually as I progressed, I realized that a master's is even possible. And I didn't want to settle. And the other thing that came to mind for me personally was I saw what happened when I stopped school and I went into the workforce. Because my whole plan when I went into the workforce, well, at least what I told my parents was that after community college, I'm going to work for 1 year and I'm going to start school. 1 year turned to 6.5 years. So that was in my mind. And I was like, well, if I go into the workforce, I don't want that to happen again. So I'm going full steam ahead. And the decision to go to grad school was really, it wasn't up for discussion for me. It was grad school and work wasn't even on my mind then. I just wanted to go all the way and just get it done personally. And earlier I spoke about utilizing the resources on your campus. And there was a lady in the career services office, Dr. Meg Barnes. I'll never forget her. She was really instrumental in my transition from from my undergrad to my graduate program. And she asked me, just money is not an option, money is not an issue or anything. If you had to do one of two things, which one would you do? If you had, would you work or would you go to school? And the choice was easy for me. It was go to school. So she's like, okay, now that I know what you want, let's work on getting the list of schools that you applied for and stuff like that and working on that transition. So that was simple enough for me. Um, Other students, I would, if you don't have any work experience, I highly encourage like an internship and probably going into the workforce because yeah, you go to school for business, but sometimes you get into a business role and you realize, man, I really don't want to do that. So that's a good way to figure out what you want to do after. Like if you really like it, and then what if you're gonna pursue a master's in it or something. But for me, I knew where my love was in business, so I was just driven for an MBA. So that was how that decision was made really for me.
And that's thanks for sharing that, Yannick. And I think I want to just echo the internship piece. I think internships are so important. And it's interesting, as you were talking about the different roles you did, I was reflecting and just thinking, man, I did some of those similar roles. I was on RA, I work with summer camps. So it's amazing how, I think the amazing thing for me is these roles, I think, are instrumental in shaping us to become the leaders we continue to evolve as. So just want to encourage listeners, definitely do those internships, do those campus positions, because you're serving your peers in some cases and prospective students also. And that just really, really helps you become a leader. So definitely want to just encourage people to keep doing that, seeking those opportunities. So you finished graduate school and you now need a job. So walk us through. I know, when I was in college, I had a mindset that once I cross the stage, the next day I'll have a bunch of companies at my door just knocking and calling my phone and emailing me like, "Oh, you're so great, we want you." So what was your experience in that whole, from finishing grad school to actually getting a job?
What I will say to you guys is be proactive. Just be proactive. So for me, though I hadn't experienced that, Kazim, I saw many of my friends who graduated with their bachelors at the University of Mississippi, and they were really struggling to find
Mm,
employment. And that's because they they were not proactive, I guess, in the sense of building that foundation from a year before, because you have to start really early.
yeah.
Um, so knowing that, when I started grad school August 2018. I was full time, so 1 year program. My entire mindset was centered on looking at the school's calendar and finding out when are the career fairs.
Mm,
So fall career fair, November 2018, that was circled on my calendar. And as the year progressed, I remember one of my professors, Dr. Webster, she was one of my information systems professor. She said she encouraged us. She's like, "Hey guys, you should. I really encourage you to go to the career fair and stuff like that, and just promoting it and saying like, international paper actually recruits there and stuff." And the students were excited and they were like, "Whoa, for real?" And I was like, "Huh? What's international paper like? Why everybody knows it? I don't." So anyway, class was done. I went home that night and I Googled international paper and started doing some reading, and I realized, man, that's a Fortune 500 company
mm,
recruiting at this institution and stuff. So I'm like, that's pretty interesting. So the next day, I I looked at my resume and everything, got all that ready, start updating. Well, not I didn't have much updating to do because it was already updated from my grad school applications, but start making little tweaks here and there. But again, utilizing the resources on campus, I reached out to our career services office at Delta State, and they were more than happy to assist me
wow.
and just hey, you could say this that way to have more impact. You could do this. This is a more up-to-date format for a resume. So those little things and those little adjustments were really good. Hey, you have a good resume, have a strong resume, but let's try to make it one page. And little things like that. And after that meeting, I felt ready. But then we had a follow-up meeting where and man, these people didn't have to do that, but that's the kind of opportunities that when you reach out and people see that you want to help yourself and you're willing to go that extra mile, people will go that extra mile with you. And they were like, okay, so 2, 3 days from now, let's set up some mock interview. Let's set up a mock interview so we could kind of prepare you in case you land something. So it was like, man, like, so I get there 2 days, do the mock interview, and they started. And why that mock interview was really good for me is because I hadn't interviewed until I interviewed for my internship in St. Lucia in 2006.
Oh, wow.
So the change from 2006 to 2018, you could imagine if I went into an interview not having any refining of my skills, I'd have been toast. But anyway, they started asking all those situational questions and giving me little tips about the STAR method and stuff like that. And if you're not familiar with the STAR method,
what's that? Bring it down for us.
So the STAR method is how you respond to situational questions. So S is the situation, T is the task, A is the action, and R is the result. So in your response to those questions, you kind of touch on all of these and bring it full circle. But then they added another piece to me. They say, it's not just about the results. Now, to tie the bow, you have to say how those results will benefit the position you're applying for, the team, and the company as a whole. So that was a game changer. That was so profound. So you go in there, you say, okay, so they'll ask you like, tell me about a time when you worked on a team and somebody wasn't pulling their weight or something. So you say, well, yeah, I was in college. I worked on this project and I had a team member who was a slacker. And and the task was obviously to get him to pull his weight. So hey, I met with him personally one-on-one. We found out what was stopping him from pulling his weight and what we could do to provide support and stuff like that. And hey, he told us, and this is what we did. We gave him, he preferred to do this task rather than the one he was given. So we reassessed everybody's strengths and we gave everybody tasks that aligned with their strengths. So that way the output of what they gave would have been exceptional. And the result was we got an A on the project. But so what? We got an A on the project, but okay. So that's where you tie into like that experience of handling that conflict and working with a team. That will be instrumental to my role in this position and my team members in serving our business partners. And at the end of the day, if you could build those relationships and foster that kind of relationships and environment, that could improve bottom line and our shareholders will be happy. So, you kind of bring things full circle and see, you make people see how they could benefit from that impact of your experience. So those little tricks were really helpful. So career day came, career fair came.
Yanik, hold that thought. I have to interject here. Listen, Yanik, you just changed somebody's life, man, by what you just said. Either on this call or somebody who listens, because man, that is so powerful. You're absolutely right. And you give a very practical example. Yes, what if you give a story about what you did in college, but tying it back to what they're looking for? I mean, that just blew my mind because these are things I think I had to learn and it took me a while to learn them. As a matter of fact, guys, true story. I call him my sponsor. the person who hired me at the company I currently work at, it was just a few months ago. She was explaining this concept to me, not in these words, but let me know that you have to make sure the different sources of meaning and make sure you're tying it to the different source of meaning based on who you're speaking to. And again, I did not know this before, guys. I never knew about it. So if you could get this now, research the STAR method and understand it and use it, oh my God, I promise you, you will probably outshine almost every other candidate you interview against, because not many people know this stuff. So Yanik, man, I that was just really good. And I just want to say a few things you referenced. Career services, guys, leverage those departments. On last week's podcast, the guest, Doug Hamilton, NASDAQ guy, he was saying that universities want you to get hired because the alumni want to ask you for money. So they're invested. If they see you have potential, guys, you've been doing your thing, they want to get you hired. So you go into career services office, they will help you. And then circling the career day, I mean, that is so important. Circle those career days. I know now with COVID, things might be a bit shaky, but there'll be some virtual offerings. You don't have to leave your house, right? So keep that in mind. But Yanik, I had to just interject it because that was just so powerful and profound. And I know for a fact lives are going to be changed just by what you said. But definitely proceed, man. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah, so career fair came, and guess where I went? I went straight to IP's team. and built that connection and had that conversation, and they were really impressed, like just a conversation. Then they had like a prelim, like get to know you kind of thing interview before they actually determine if you would be a solid candidate to bring up to headquarters and interview. And I went through that process successfully, and did the interviews and stuff. And I mean, I'd never done interviews like that. So you have group interviews, right? And it wasn't the traditional group interview. It was an all-day affair, and it was a unique experience. It was first
Wow.
time for me. It wasn't, and I'm sure it's like that for a lot of companies now, I assume. But it was an all-day affair, and it was like half an hour interview, then half an hour info session or 1 hour info session. Then you get a break, then another 4 interviews and 4 info sessions in a day. And in each interview, you meet 3 completely new managers, and that's how it went. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was that experience. That went smoothly. Got the job offer, and accepted and landed. And remember, guys, that's November 2018. I just started school. So it was about being proactive, because I didn't want to be like others who, when they graduate, start looking, because
Yeah.
I saw what they were going through.
Yeah.
So by November, first week, December, I got a job offer. So that monkey was off my back. So
Man,
right
talk
now,
about the pressure of that being off your back, because that's something
yeah,
actually, Aaron and I are discussing that now. Aaron graduates in May of next year. He's a data science intern, so he has that computer science skill set. And I said to Aaron, we want to have a job secured in the bag before he walks that stage. We want an offer, signed, sealed, delivered before he walks that stage. So Yannick, just talk to us about having that monkey off your back and what it did for you.
it's a good feeling, because at that point, everything else is easy, because all you have to do is graduate. So, and but still, I didn't take my foot off the gas with my academics and what I wanted to achieve. Still gave my 110%, like I didn't have a job offer, and just approached it that way, and successfully completed within a year. And I got done with school end of July 2019, and then put stuff in place and moved to Memphis to start work on August 12th, 2019. So you eliminate that gap, and I mean, you just continue along. So my whole thing is really like, be proactive, get get comfortable with being uncomfortable as well, because you have to kind of put yourself out there and seek help, because no any successful person who tells you they did it alone, that's not true. You need a support system, you need people to help you, you need mentors, you need people to guide you, especially people who are more experienced and people who have walked the walk. It makes them qualified to talk the talk too. And having that kind of mindset and making yourself vulnerable and knowing when you need help and when to seek help will take you a really long way. So that was pretty much it.
Yanik, yeah, those words, man, really resonate for me, and I like the fact that you said you did not take your foot off the pedal, even if you had that job secured. You still kept pressing. That's so important, guys. So we're wrapping up here, guys. I promise just a few questions left. So a couple of rapid fire questions, quick response type questions, and then I want to end with a story. I want to end with another transformational story. That's the last thing I want to cover. Before I get to the last few questions, any questions from the guys on the call right now? Any questions you want to ask Yanik right now? And shout out to Greg's son, man. He's
Don't
digging this.
hesitate, guys.
Yeah, I think I have one.
Go ahead.
Mm, Quite an intriguing and encouraging story. It shows that no matter how down your back gets, you never back down. So just keep striving, and I really love it. It kind of helps to tell one that, see, it doesn't matter how much you think you've lost it, just hang in there. Yeah, thank you so much. So it's always very nice and great to get back, give a job. We're just hoping to just pen down your last paper and then just kick you. Yeah, quite interesting. So, but I think like you mentioned initially, I know you would have worked with international students at some point. So, and you actually came in as a resident. So I think your situation is kind of a little bit different from. So, what would be your advice for international students, maybe on OPT, especially during this pandemic era where things are no longer the way they used to be? What would be your advice for someone like me?
I would honestly say, like keep looking. Be honest about your status, because so I'll give you a story. When I was in grad school, I had international friends from Europe. They were internationals, but they had their visas allowed them to work like for 1 year, but companies were hesitant to hire because they didn't want to go through the process of being a sponsor and all of that. But so they didn't bother do it because nothing was going to come out of it. But you never know, because I had this one friend who did it, and he was like, you know what's the worst that could happen? I mean, 1 year I get that experience, I go back. I mean, and guess what? He made the most of that opportunity so much that it opened doors for him beyond that. And he got recommendations, although the company wasn't in a position to sponsor, but they referred him to other companies. And he eventually got something, I believe at a university too, but he eventually got something. So I would say those little opportunities, take advantage of it. Really, if the internships are very important too, because if you get that, like, and you give 110% and you work really hard and you put in that effort and you showed that you could work diligently and work with others, who knows what could happen, to be honest. But I have had friends from the University of Mississippi too, from Nepal, who landed stuff in Dallas as well, and they were computer engineering majors. So I think you guys being in that IT background, like all that data analytics and all that stuff, there is a need for that degree in the US, no matter where you go. And And everything in a company, every decision, not just companies, every decision making in our economy today is based on data and how you analyze that data and what you do with that data and what you could take away from that data. So I believe you guys have an invaluable degree in your hands, and I mean it's just a matter of looking and just hopefully something will come out of it.
Thank you so much.
Good answer, Yanik. Any other questions, guys? All right, so I'll get the last few rapid fire questions and end that story as I promised. So Yanik, what is a book or resource that you'd recommend? And just a disclaimer: the last two people who've asked a question gave a bunch of books, so you're fine if you have more than one.
No, I just have one. I just have one. It's a John Maxwell book. It's what's it called again? It's called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And I've started reading that book, and I stopped reading it for a couple of weeks, but I started reading that book, and it's just an incredible book, and it puts you in that thought process of being a leader and harnessing those soft skills. It talks a lot about intentionality and all those kind of things. So it's a really awesome book on leadership by John Maxwell. That book was actually gifted to me from my advisor at community college, and he'd probably be disappointed in me to find out that he gave me that book so long ago and I only just started reading it. But yeah, that's a really good book. It's a really good book.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that, Yanni. I think I did the audio version maybe a couple of years ago, and you're right, it was really, really powerful. What's a resource that you would like to share? And maybe I know because you're in the SAP space, maybe you could give an SAP resource, especially for young people or young IT students who are trying to learn SAP, get understanding of what it is. You have a resource you could share, or any resource in general?
A resource in general that really helped me. If you're on LinkedIn, there's something on LinkedIn called LinkedIn Learning. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of that. You have to subscribe for it. I think right now they have the first month free kind of thing. I highly encourage you to register for that first month subscription, LinkedIn Learning. And it has a host of different videos and courses and stuff. And it really keeps you up to date with different programming languages. And it's like little courses you could do to just help build your those skills that you're lacking in, those competencies. So like there's a lot of stuff. I use it primarily for soft skill based stuff. I have done some courses on R, which is a statistical programming language. There is stuff on SQL. There's a host of different things you could do. But my focus was really on always developing those soft skills, because I honestly believe those account for so much more of your success than anything you could ever do. So that's my focus. But LinkedIn Learning, really great resource, host of different videos and courses and stuff on pretty much anything, and it keeps you up to date with what's trending in the industries and stuff like that. So that's a really awesome stuff to have.
Yeah, that's a great resource, guys. And I see we have 4 UIS students or alumni on the call. And for you guys, you could get, so LinkedIn Learning used to be the company Lynda, Lynda. So LinkedIn bought Lynda. So you guys, by the way, have access to it for free. When I took my first UIS course on databases, man, lynda.com, when I found out we had access to it, that is what helped me understand SQL and databases. So
I lived on LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah, you see.
So
I lived on it. I have free access. We have free access at UIS.
Yes, we do.
So,
We do.
Okay,
So, man, listen,
that's even awesome.
Keep milking it. So Yanik, where can people connect with you, and then we'll get into the last story?
Definitely LinkedIn. I'm definitely on LinkedIn. It's really my focus now, just trying to build that professional network and really see what's going on out there. LinkedIn really keeps me informed, especially if what's going on in the industry and stuff too. So it's really my primary focus now. if you, and I will tell you, and I'm just passing on the advice that I was given. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, I highly encourage you to get one. Even if you don't have anything on it, just make one. Um, it will take you a long way. For me, I had a LinkedIn I had a LinkedIn account in probably 2015 and didn't put a profile picture on there until 2018, I think. But but yeah, like really build that resume because that's your virtual resume
Yeah.
and people are always looking. People are always looking, always looking. It's a really good resource and really valuable. So I would highly encourage that.
And for everyone on the call and our listeners and viewers, go ahead and reach out, connect with Yannick. His LinkedIn game is strong. This guy has
Nah,
quite the LinkedIn game.
no,
So
not really.
yeah, but definitely connect. I put his profile
Yeah.
in the chat and the notes. But connect with him. I think you'll learn a thing or two. And just kind of, if you have questions, follow-up questions, he'll be a good, as you could see, he's a good sounding board and has some really good wisdom and insight also. So
Yeah,
guys,
I
go
already
ahead.
connected.
Perfect, perfect. We're gonna get into the very last story. I promise I won't be like a Baptist preacher who says I'm getting ready to close about 10 times. So the last story, Yannick. So guys, I mentioned we went to high school together. We played basketball together on afternoons. Oh boy, the glory days. And Yannick was a chubby guy. Can I say that, Yannick? Chubby guy. A little heavy. A little
Yeah,
heavy.
God.
So that was back in 2000 and what, 3, 4. We finished school in 2004. Chubby guy, even in community college, chubby guy. Then again, as I start seeing him making moves, like I said earlier, several years later, I start seeing him looking different. I mean, the guy got jacked. And sadly, I forgot to ask him for like a little before and after picture. I'll probably put it in the final video so you guys could see it. So Yannick, we did that before and after picture. But he made a massive transformation physically, from being overweight to being in, I mean, one of the best shape, one of the best shaped guys you could imagine. So Yannick, just speak to us about what sparked the transformation, and just tell us about it.
So to be honest, guys, I was morbidly obese, and
That was
I
nice.
was chubby. Chubby is a kind way to put it, but I was again. I was in a. I guess I was too happy, I would say, but no. I was morbidly obese, and when I made the decision, so like Kazim said, when we were in high school, we played ball and stuff, and I was really big, and it's the heaviest I think I remember weighing. I could have been heavier, but I'm five. I was five back then. I was probably 5'7". I'm 5'9" now, so even if I was 5'7" back then, I guess, and I weighed 255.
Wow.
Yes. And I didn't think anything of it. So like anything else, I always struggle with joint issues, and I was because joint issues because I was so physically active too, but I was still that big anyway, and and I always had high blood pressure too. Like every time I would go to the doctor and stuff, he would always tell me, "Hey, your pressure is really high. You need to start doing something about it." And I was young, but didn't really understand about it. But gradually as time went on, I made little changes, and really, when I decided to switch that focus and really zone in on that was probably around January 2012. I was working already and everything, and still big. And I started doing some research because I went to the doctor and my blood pressure was still high. And he was just blunt with me, like like if you don't do something, like you could really get cardiac arrest, you could get a stroke, you could. And I was only 25, so that I couldn't fathom that stuff. So I really got serious on it because growing up historically, my parents have been diagnosed as hypertensive and they've always been on medication. So as genetics would have it, I kind of suffered from that too. So I made the decision to do some research on my own, and set a goal for myself, a realistic goal, because I had done diets and everything together, but never really incorporated physical activity. So my whole mindset was to incorporate some physical activity into my lifestyle and to eat healthier and really to try it for a year. And that was the mindset, like 1 year. See what happens after a year. No doing it for 1 month and stopping and nothing like that. Because I've done that and zero. You get results, but then you go back to square one and even worse. So I set that goal for myself. I had two buddies who started the gym with me, and they were really the springboard, which really helped me to to keep that drive going because I'd never been in a gym before. So they were showing me different things. And funny enough, I was telling Kazim 2 days ago, one of the guys who's a doctor, Edmund Regis, um, the routine we used to do back then is basically the same routine I've continued to do up until this day, with more little things here and there. But anyway, you know, started running every morning, started eating a little healthier, started exercising, started doing the gym, and that really came to in this during the same time of the SAP implementation, where I was really driven to make something better of myself. I was one going through health issues, and I know my family has health issues because both my grandparents are diabetic as well, my grandmothers. So it was something that I thought about too, that I could suffer from at some point or the other, and I didn't want to go through that stuff. So it was me just trying to be serious of life and not being a joker and not being a slacker and just incorporating those little changes to prove that that I can be a serious person. And that was really the basis for me changing it. As far as the sustaining part of it, when I saw the results after, let's say, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, I really couldn't believe it. And I had dropped down. I I had dropped down maybe, I guess, 40, 50 pounds. No, not so
Wow.
much. About 40. About 40.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the results, and that was enough motivation to just keep grinding at it.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually got down to like 170, and that was at my peak, and that was around 2014. And just continuing that, and just the personal mantra again, success through self-discipline, and just
Yeah.
no matter who's there, like whether somebody's there or not, there's no excuses. Like I am accountable for my own self because of the decisions I've made in the past, a younger Yanik made. This is why I'm here now. So I have nobody to blame but myself. So the only person who could fix this is me. So I'm going to do everything I can to fix this. And that was really the driving factor behind it. And yeah, that was a game changer. It's funny because people in the US, my friends I made in the US and stuff, they don't know me as being morbidly obese. Sometimes I remember one time I got this picture from, I think it was probably 2010, and I showed it to a friend of mine, and to this day he still doesn't believe that. But yeah, I mean, it's all about that self-discipline again, and really putting in the work, man, because when you reap the fruits of that labor and you actually see the results, it really motivates you to keep pressing. And it's not just about keeping on pressing, but you know, being willing if somebody asks for help too, like you're always willing to extend that hand. One of the things I try to do, because a quote from a guy I listened to, Shannon Sharp, he says the greatest gift of knowledge is being able to share it. And
Wow.
what good is knowledge if you're not willing to pass it on to other people? And it's something I always try to do. And I mean, that's just some of the values I try to embody and live by to this day.
Man, shout out to Shannon Sharp, Uncle Shay.
Yeah.
I love that
Uncle
quote.
Shay.
I love that quote, man. That's pretty good. And so it's interesting, Yanik, because we had the opposite thing. For me, I was super skinny. So when I show people old pictures, they say that can't be you. But it's funny, guys. He said he was morbidly obese, but again, the guy made the basketball team several years, and I mean, he can shoot that basketball. So again, he found ways to make things happen on the court. But I like the perseverance and the discipline, guys. And I wanted to say, guys, I know we're all technology people, but prioritize your health. Prioritize your health. Whether you like to run, lift weights, you like to do both, push-ups. Like literally during quarantine, when I was just down to push-ups, and I do have a pull-up bar. I hang it on my door. I do some pull-ups. Like just do something physically every single day, because we want you guys to have long lives and prosperous lives to enjoy all the money you're gonna make in technology, right? Aaron had his hand up. What's your question, Aaron? You're on mute if you're talking.
You're on mute.
That was a long time ago, Mike. I
No,
put my hand up. I quit.
Ask it.
No, it's too late.
Forgot it?
No, it's never too late.
Question, it's over. I gave up. I was like, oh, he's just gonna keep on going.
Oh no.
My bad. If you remember it, you could ask it.
Nah.
No, seriously, ask it.
Yeah, I mean,
Nah, I really don't remember.
Oh yeah, I got you.
Or connect with me on LinkedIn, and if it comes up, just shoot me a message for real.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sounds good. So, guys, I just want to thank you, Yanik, for sharing your story with us, and for our listeners and viewers. Definitely, give us a review, like, subscribe, comment. I feel like this was a really powerful recording and story from Yanik. So please share with somebody else. And thank you for taking the time to join us for the IT Connect podcast. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And we out.